Okay, so this is Dr. Maniac versus Robby Schwartz, book 5 in the HorrorLand series. Enter HorrorLand. So here again, the first page is the HorrorLand ticket. The story so far. Several kids received mysterious invitations to be special guests at HorrorLand theme park. They were supposed to have a week of scary fun, but the scares quickly became too real. Brittany Crosby and Molly Malloy disappeared. Billy Deep was horrified when his sister Sheena became invisible. Then Sheena disappeared too. A park guide, a horror named Byron, warned the kids that they were all in danger. Byron tried to help them, but he was dragged away by other horrors. Were they all in danger? The kids are desperate to find Byron to get some answers. Carly Beth Caldwell and her friend Sabrina Mason arrived at HorrorLand a few days after the others. They quickly got themselves lost and locked into an area of the park called Wolfsbane Forest. Who else is trapped in this forest of werewolves? You guessed it, Robby Schwartz. Robby continues the story. Chapter 1. Wolfsbane Forest. When I saw the big sign at the entrance, I thought it sounded like a place in one of my comic stories. But it was real, too real. A forest where wolves and werewolves walked free. They howled at the moon and patted on their furry paws over the crackling dead leaves on the forest floor. I could see the glowing eyes of the inhuman beasts through the dark trees. Were they stalking me? Stalking their prey? A chill shook my body as if someone had dropped ice down my back. HorrorLand is an amusement park, right? And Wolfsbane Forest is one of the biggest attractions. It's supposed to be fun. I told myself the half-man, half-wolf creatures were machines. Big toys run by someone in a hidden control room. But they looked so real, so menacing. Even in bright daylight, I stayed on the alert and kept my distance. But now it was night, and I listened to the hungry howls all around me, and each sound made me jump with fright. How did I let this happen? How did I stay so long in Werewolf Village? It was my first day at HorrorLand. Yes, I was excited. When the invitation came in the mail, I forgot about everything else. I had to go. I mean, I know I got that weird message from Dr. Maniac and everything, but would you give up a free week's stay as a special guest at the coolest theme park ever? Why was Werewolf Village the first place I visited? I draw so many comics that take place in the woods and forests. I love imagining the scary beasts and monsters that live in the forest. I couldn't wait to see what the HorrorLand people created in their forest. But I lost track of the time. Under the thick trees of the forest, I didn't even see the sun go down, and now I stumbled through the dark, searching for the way out, listening to the angry growls and long, mournful wolf howls. It gave me lots of ideas for my next strip. Dr. Maniac versus the White Werewolf. Or maybe Dr. Maniac versus Wonder Werewolf. Who would win that battle? How would the evil maniac defeat an immortal wolfman? I was thinking hard about these questions. I didn't see the jagged rock in front of me. I let out a cry as I stumbled over it. My arms shot out to stop my fall. I landed on somebody. High, shrill screams made my heart stop beating. My arms were tangled in somebody's arms. We bumped heads. I struggled to pull away. The screams rang in my ears. Staggering back, I saw two girls about my age. Even in the dark, I could see that their eyes were wide with fear. Huddled together, they backed away from me. Breathing hard, I brushed off the front of my jeans. Hi, I said. Guess I scared you, huh? What are you doing here? The taller one cried. Your hair, it's so wild, and it's so dark here. We thought you were a werewolf, her friend said. No, I don't even shave yet, I told her. Always keep it light, right? They still stared at me like I was some kind of hideous creature. Robby Schwartz, terror of the forest. Sorry I scared you, I said. I tripped over something. I can't find my way out of this place. The two girls told me their names, Carly Beth and Sabrina. I'm Robby Schwartz, I said. I've been wandering around in circles for hours. I never was a Boy Scout. I don't know how to read a compass. Carly Beth frowned. I don't think a compass would help, she said. She pointed to a tall wire gate. Sabrina and I got lost too. We saw some horrible men in cages. Some of them had wolf snouts. It wasn't fun. It looked real. Finally, we found this gate. Sabrina walked to the gate and tugged the metal lock. We're locked in. But there has to be an unlocked gate somewhere, right? Unless they lock up the whole forest for the night, I said. Carly Beth hugged herself. There has to be a way out. Otherwise, kids would get trapped in here every night. Maybe that's how they feed the wolves, I said. It was supposed to be a joke, but no one laughed. Out of the silence, we heard rapid footsteps. We froze and listened to the thud of heavy paws on the ground. Low snarls, growling wolves, hungry growls, wolves moving fast through the forest. They're coming for us, I whispered. Chapter 2. They burst out from the trees, 4 of them, heads lowered, eyes glowing like yellow marbles. My mouth dropped open. I froze in fear. I knew I looked like a terrified character in one of my comics, and suddenly the scene from one of my first stories flashed through my mind. Dr. Maniac versus the mighty mole boy. I didn't think about it. My body just moved. I dropped to my knees on the soft ground in front of the gate, and I began pawing at the dirt. I dug frantically. Luckily, the dirt was soft as sand. I scooped up handfuls of dirt under the fence and shoved them aside, pawing like the mole creature in my comic strip. The growling wolves formed a line behind us. One of them lifted its head to the moon, as if signaling for an attack. Breathing hard, I shoveled an opening big enough to slide my hands in. I pushed my hands into the shallow hole and dropped onto my stomach. Then I kicked with both feet, kicked hard and fast, again. The bottom of the fence scraped my back, but I pushed myself under it and over to the other side. Then, wiping dirt off my forehead, I turned to help the 2 girls. I didn't have to tell them what to do. Sabrina was already on her stomach. She stuck both hands under the bottom of the fence. I grabbed them and started to pull her through to my side. Duck your head, duck your head, I screamed. Her hair got stuck on a wire. She let out a cry and lowered her face to the dirt, and I tugged her the rest of the way. I turned to help Carly Beth. Behind her, I watched the wolves. Their silvery fur glistened in the moonlight. They raised their heads and let out hungry howls. They arched their backs, preparing to attack. Hurry, Carly Beth, Sabrina screamed. I grabbed Carly Beth's hands and pulled. Her body slid heavily over the dirt. She was halfway through when the wolves attacked. All 4 of them leaped at once. She screamed so loud, I dropped her hands. My heart pounding, I grabbed for them again. I pulled hard, but Carly Beth was stuck. It got me, Carly Beth wailed. Ow, it got my foot. Chapter 3. No, a hoarse cry burst from my throat. I pictured Carly Beth's foot chewed to pieces, but no. Carly Beth, the wolf doesn't have your foot, I choked out. Your foot is caught in the fence. She gave a hard kick. Her shoe caught in the fence. But I pulled her the rest of the way to my side. The ferocious wolves leaped and crashed into the fence. Howling angrily, they leaped again. Too late. Carly Beth jumped to her feet, struggling to catch her breath. They're real, she stammered. The wolves stared at us, their heads lowered, like a staring contest. They didn't move or blink. Let's get away from here, Sabrina said. She tugged her friend back from the fence. At least we got out of the forest. Let's go back to the hotel. Carly Beth turned to me. You saved us from those wolves, she said, digging under the fence like that. That's me, Robby Schwartz, superhero, I said. Know where I can buy a cape and tights? We've got to find the other kids, Carly Beth said. We've got to tell them what Sabrina and I heard today, and what's going on. She pulled her shoe out from under the fence. Then, taking long strides, she and Sabrina followed the path toward the Stagger Inn, our hotel. I had to jog to catch up with them. Other kids? What do you mean? I asked, stepping between them. We met these kids, Carly Beth said. Other special guests. They said scary things happened to them here in the park. They said a horror named Byron warned them. Warned them about what? I said. Warned them that we're all in danger, Carly Beth replied. Danger? Suddenly I remembered the end of that comic strip. Dr. Maniac warning me he'd be waiting at HorrorLand. Maybe I should have listened. We passed the Crocodile Cafe. A neon sign over the door read, Grab a bite. Good food in a snap. I could see Black Lagoon Water Park in the distance. The park was still crowded with kids and families. It cheered me up to be back in a crowd. We were out of that frightening werewolf village. Why did Carly Beth still look so totally terrified? I didn't believe those kids when they told me about the missing girls, Carly Beth said. They said 2 girls, Brittany and Molly, totally disappeared, and a girl named Sheena turned invisible, she said. I thought maybe they were trying to scare Sabrina and me. Carly Beth shook her head. But I believe them now. We heard these two horrors talking, Sabrina said. Marcus and Bubba. Those were their names. They didn't know Carly Beth and I could hear them. We ducked around a Frozen Eyeballs cart. Behind the cart, a horror in a yellow apron was piling eyeballs on a sugar cone. Painted on the side of the cart were the words, I scream. I scream. Lick an eyeball for lunch. What did the two horrors say? I asked. They said things were going to get a lot scarier for a special guest, Sabrina replied. I squinted at her. Seriously? Carly Beth frowned at me. Don't you think being attacked by real werewolves was scary enough? Carly Beth is right, Sabrina said. Something frightening is going on here. Well, what should we do about it? I asked. Before they could answer, I felt something wrap around my ankle. Look out, I screamed. My hands flew out in front of me, and I went plunging headfirst to the ground. Chapter 4. I hit the asphalt hard and bounced once or twice. My breath caught in my throat. Something had brought me down. Something... Why were the girls laughing? I spun around and saw the puffy green stuffed snake at my feet. Someone probably wanted a carnival game and dropped it. The two girls helped pull me up. You're an awesome superhero, Sabrina said. We won't tell anyone you tripped over a stuffed snake, Carly Beth said. Just everyone we meet. They both laughed again. I held up the snake. Look at those vicious fangs, I said. This snake is a killer. I just saved your lives again. I handed the snake to a little girl who was walking by with her parents. You're our millionth customer, I said. You win a fabulous stuffed snake. Thanks, she said. She flung the snake over her shoulder and kept on walking. We watched her go. Her parents kept looking back at us. We've got to get serious, Carly Beth said. She started toward the hotel again. We were almost killed back there. Maybe those kids found Byron, the horror who said he wanted to help, Sabrina said. We made our way through a group of teenagers who were playing keep away with a kid's basketball cap. They tossed it back and forth, shouting and laughing. I just came here for fun, I told the girls. Do you really think we were all invited for another reason? I didn't hear their answer. I could see them talking, but their words disappeared into the air. Something very strange was happening to me. I suddenly felt as if I were floating, as if I had left my body down on the ground and I was hovering above it, too far away to hear what Carly Beth and Sabrina were saying. I struggled to concentrate on them, but I could feel myself being pulled away, feel my mind drifting, swimming in the air. I held my breath, shook my head, tried to make the strange feeling go away. Blinking, I focused on the building up ahead. Big blue neon letters over the wide entrance announced the Game Preserve, 100 video games. Game Preserve? A huge game arcade? Without realizing it, I had spun away from the girls, and my legs were taking me there. My mind was already there, and I was being pulled, like by a vacuum cleaner. Pulled to the game arcade. Hey, Robby! I heard Carly Beth shout. Robby, where are you going? Hey! Catch you later, I said. At least I think I said it, because my brain was already in the arcade. And I stepped through the doors into a huge room under intense blue light. The blue light washed over everything. The games looked blue, and the people playing them did too. The floor and the walls glowed like blue ice. I walked past a row of war games and then a long row of racing games. Cars roaring and squealing. I saw pinball games against one, and a wall of classic games like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. I didn't stop to check them out. Guns roared, bombs exploded, music rose and fell. I kept walking through the blue light as if my legs knew where they were going. I didn't have a choice. Is this what it feels like to be hypnotized? The strange blue light swirled around me like a fog, and when it finally cleared, I was standing in a tiny black room. The roars and blasts of the games behind me faded into the far distance. I stopped and stared in shock at one game in the room. A big video screen with flashing lights all around it. Evil laughter poured out of its speakers, and the title of the game filled the screen in dripping purple letters. Dr. Maniac's World of Pain. I gasped. How could this be? How could there be a Dr. Maniac game? And what was the power that pulled me here and drew me to this game? I knew I had to play it. I moved to the counter beside the game console. A helmet with an orange visor and yellow leather gloves were waiting for me there. Next to them, I saw a stack of silver tokens. Someone wanted me to play this game. Someone got it all ready for me. But who and why? And why couldn't I just turn and walk away? I pulled the heavy helmet down over my head. I peered out through the plastic orange visor. There were speakers inside the helmet. I heard music and that deep, evil laughter. I pulled on the yellow gloves. They were light and slipped on easy. I stepped up to the game console. I dropped the token into the slot. It made a clicking sound. The music changed. The screen went black. I picked up the red and purple blaster gun from the side of the game machine. I tested it a few times. It made a zip sound each time I pulled the trigger. The screen turned purple, then red. A smoky fog covered the screen, and then a figure stepped forward from out of that fog. He swirled his leopard skin cape and floated closer. Dr. Maniac, my character, my creation, my enemy. Chapter 5. My hand trembled as I pushed the start button. I leaned over the console. Could I defeat Dr. Maniac? I'm not crazy. I'm a maniac, Dr. Maniac's voice boomed inside my helmet. I raised the blaster and aimed it at the big M on his chest and pulled the trigger. I heard a drippy bloop 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 sound. On the video game, Dr. Maniac tossed back his head and laughed. You have to earn your ammo first, Robby, he boomed. The chase is on, loser. I gasped. He called me by name. He took off and flew through a crowded city. His leopard skin cape floated behind him as he swooped higher, then down again between tall buildings. I aimed the blaster at the yellow feathers on his boots, pulled the trigger. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Useless. I dropped the gun and grabbed the controller. I whipped it frantically from left to right, trying to follow the flying villain. He flew through a maze of tall buildings and ducked through crowds at busy corners. Each time I stayed with him, I racked up ammo points. The numbers rolled at the top of the screen, and I heard a sound like pow, pow, pow each time I scored. He zoomed into a subway opening, and I followed him down into the tunnel. We flew together in a wild race through the dark, twisting tunnel. I pulled up as an ugly monster rose up on the tracks, a huge purple underground subway creature swinging a dozen deadly tentacles. The monster filled the tunnel, blocking my path to Dr. Maniac. Yellow slime dripped off its jagged yellow teeth. Screeching at the top of its lungs, it waved its tentacles and snapped its massive jaws open to swallow me. I jerked the controller back to stop my flight. I fumbled for the blaster, grabbed it, and pulled the trigger. The 2 words in big green letters filled the screen. Game over. Breathing hard, I leaned both hands on the game console. The game ended just as I was racking up big ammo points. I reached for another token. Should I play another game? No, I decided. I've got to catch up with Carly, Beth, and Sabrina. But then Dr. Maniac's grinning face appeared on the screen. Robby, you surely know that a loser never quits and a quitter never loses, or something like that, he screamed. He tossed his head back and laughed. I'm not crazy. I'm a maniac. He took off again. This time he was flying over a crowded beach. Gold and green ocean waves tossed beneath him, and without realizing it, my gloved hands were back on the controls, and I was chasing after him. Again, flying behind him, swooping when he swooped, trying to follow his every move. Pow, pow, pow. The ammo points rolled up. I had over 500,000 now. Dr. Maniac stretched out his arms and flew away from the beach. The sound of the wind roared in my helmet, and suddenly I heard bird sounds, hoarse caws and cries, and a swarm of fanged vampire seagulls rose up in front of me. Their wings raised high. They began to spit blood on me. Each time I was hit, I felt it. I knew this was just a game, but I felt every hit, every blast of the wind and the water. On the screen, I dropped lower in the sky. A few more hits and I'd sink into the ocean. Would I feel myself drowning? I raised the blaster, aimed, and started to shoot. Pop! A vampire seagull exploded on the screen in a flash of red and yellow. Pop, pop. I blasted 2 more. Ow! I was hit again. The disgusting birds were raining blood on me. I was sinking, sinking. The tossing waves reached up to pull me down, and once again, game over. Okay, I'm done, I shouted. You win. I struggled to catch my breath. I grabbed the sides of the helmet and started to pull it off. Hey! It was stuck or something. I grabbed the visor and tugged up on it. But the helmet didn't slide. Again, I pressed my gloved hands against the sides. I pushed up with all my strength. No, the helmet had tightened itself to my head. I decided I could remove it easier without the gloves, so I grabbed the fingers of one glove and pulled at them. Huh? I let out a startled cry when the glove wouldn't slide either. Frantically, I pulled at one glove, then the other. I'm not crazy. I'm a maniac. Dr. Maniac's scream rang inside the helmet. On the big video screen, he laughed his evil laugh and took off again. This time he was flying over a jungle. My hands grabbed the control, and I guided myself after him. I can't quit, I cried out loud. It won't let me stop. Pow, 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 pow. I rang up ammo points as I swooped and dove after the flying villain, and now we were flying in a wild path through the jungle trees. My left hand frantically guided the controller. My right hand grabbed the blaster and began shooting at jungle animals as they leaped at me. Pow, pow, pow. I want to quit, I cried. My voice was muffled by the helmet, drowned out by the loud music, the screams of the jungle animals, and Dr. Maniac's insane laughter. I want to stop, I screamed. The game ended. I struggled to pull off the gloves. I clamped my teeth over a middle finger and tugged with all my might. No, the glove stuck to my hand. With a furious cry, I grabbed the sides of the helmet and began twisting it one way, then the other, but that sent pain shooting down my neck. The helmet didn't budge. Another game began. Dr. Maniac flew over a red sand desert. I grabbed the controller. I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't keep my hand from gripping it. I took off after him, his laughter ringing through the helmet. Sweat poured down my forehead. My legs trembled. My heart raced. The game ended. Another game started, then another. I bent over the game console, struggling to free myself, but I was trapped. I was a prisoner of a video game. Another game started. We were racing across a big city again. Suddenly, in the glass that covered the video screen, I saw a reflection. Somebody stood behind me in the arcade room. I could see his shadowy figure in the glass. I stared harder at the reflection. The figure stepped closer, and I realized it was Dr. Maniac. Standing behind me? Still gripping the controls, I spun my head around. No one standing there. I turned back to the game and saw Dr. Maniac's grinning reflection in the glass. I turned again and glanced around the room. No one there. Pow, 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 pow. The game continued. I was back in the subway tunnel, blasting away at the ugly underground monster. My arms ached, my legs shook. My throat felt so dry I couldn't swallow. The game ended and another game began. I tried to free myself, but I was stuck. And then I heard a noise behind me. I whipped my head around and saw two girls walk into the room. Carly Beth and Sabrina? No, two other girls. They looked about my age. They both had coppery red hair and brown eyes. One wore a red and yellow sundress. The other had a pale green t-shirt over white shorts. Were they sisters? They stopped just past the doorway and stared at me. Help me, I screamed. Help, I'm stuck here. I tried to point to the game machine, but my hands wouldn't let go of the controller and blaster. They took a few steps closer. Please, I begged. It's no joke. It's for real. Help me. What do you want us to do? The one in the sundress said. Pull the plug, I shouted. Unplug the machine. Hurry, please, unplug it. Dr. Maniac cackled in my ears. I'm not crazy. I'm a maniac, he shrieked. And another game began. Unplug it, I cried. The girls ran to the back of the machine. They dropped to their knees to find the plug. I couldn't see them. On the screen, I was flying over the ocean again. The vampire seagulls squawked and began to spit blood on me. Unplug it. Can you find the plug? I cried. Please. Both girls poked their head up at the same time. We can't unplug it, one of them shouted. It isn't plugged in. Chapter 6. One girl held up the plug. See? Dr. Maniac's laughter rang in the helmet. Vampire seagulls rained blood on me. I was sinking toward the ocean waves. My arms ached. My chest throbbed. I could feel my legs about to cave in. I've played at least 20 games. I could barely see straight, but I couldn't stop myself. I leaned over the console, blasting away at the seagulls. Find the on-off switch, I cried. Hurry! The girls circled the machine. They bent down and searched under the video screen and all around the base of the console. We can't find it, one of them shouted. There's no switch, the other one said. We can't turn it off. Pow, pow, pow. Kaboom! A seagull exploded on the screen. 3 more vicious birds came flying at me. I let out a groan. Everything faded to gray, then black. I could feel my eyes roll up in my head and my knees buckle. I knew I was fainting, but I couldn't stop myself. My chest hit the front of the game console as I fell. and then sharp pain shot through my head as I hit glass on the way down. As it hit the glass on the way down. You know how they always show people seeing stars in comic books? They bang their heads on something and then they see stars floating above their heads? Well, I really did see them. Bright gold ones twinkling against a black background, and then the stars faded and I blacked out. When I opened my eyes, I was flat on my back on the floor. Slowly, I lifted my head. I stared at the video screen, blank. The game had finally stopped. I sat up. I pulled off the helmet. Yes, I cried, I'm free. I pulled off the gloves and tossed them across the room. The girl stood there, gaping at me. I'm okay, I said. It's lucky I've got a hard head. I fall down a lot. I was trying to be funny, but they didn't laugh. They moved forward quickly. They grabbed my arms and pulled me to my feet. You have to come with us, the one in the sundress said. It's not safe here. They held my arms tightly and started to guide me to the door. Hurry, just follow us, the other girl said. Whoa, I pulled my arms free. Where are you taking me? Away from here, the first one said. Far away, where it's safe. Huh? Excuse me? I cried. Who are you? I'm Brittany Crosby, the first girl said. That's my friend, Molly Malloy. I would just like to point out I have not read anything past here. Chapter 7. Brittany and Molly. Where had I heard those names before? I'm Robby Schwartz, I said. Come on, Robby, hurry, Brittany said. She grabbed my arm again. HorrorLand isn't safe. Did you think getting stuck on that game was an accident? Molly asked. You just saw for yourself how dangerous it is here. Come with us, Brittany said, pulling me through the arcade. But where? I asked again. These girls were definitely weird. To the other park, Molly said in a whisper. She glanced around to make sure no one overheard. We'll be safe there. Huh? Other park? I cried. The special guests were all brought to HorrorLand for revenge, Brittany said. She squeezed my arm. I could see she was frightened. We have to rescue the others too, she said. Revenge? Who would want revenge? I demanded. I don't understand what you're saying. You're not making any sense. The blue light at the arcade washed over us as they pulled me to the door. The games were quiet now. It was very late. The big room had emptied out. Just trust us, Molly said. We have to bring you to the other park with us. She pulled a token from her pocket. She raised it in front of my face. The golden coin was so shiny and new, I could see my reflection on it. And I could see the words engraved on the front. Panic Park. Just look at this for a minute, Molly said. I laughed. Are you trying to hypnotize me? They didn't answer, and suddenly, as I gazed at the shiny golden token, I began to feel weird. I mean, really weird. Like I was being pulled to the coin, like being sucked into my own reflection by a powerful force. I could feel my whole body floating off the floor, flying toward the coin in Molly's hand, as if I were weightless, as if I could disappear into the shiny token. Closer, closer. I was melting. My body was shrinking to fit into the golden circle, shrinking away. I took a deep breath and let out an angry scream. No! With a burst of strength, I slapped the token out of Molly's hand. She gasped, and we both watched it fly across the room. It came to a spinning stop in front of the arcade door. Get it! Molly cried to her friend. But before anyone could move, the door swung open. Hey! I let out a startled cry. A ventriloquist dummy stood by itself in the doorway, no one holding him up, no one else around. The dummy wore a tight-fitting gray suit with a red bow tie. It had a crazy smile on its painted lips, and its big eyes darted from side to side. I turned and saw both Brittany and Molly back away in horror. Slappy, they screamed the name together. Ooh. Chapter 8. I wanted to get away from these two girls. They were acting totally weird. I started to the door. I planned to push the dummy out of the way, but the thing started to move. It took a few steps toward me and stuck out its wooden hands to block my way. Hey, I shouted. I turned back to Brittany and Molly. Who's making him walk? Before they could answer, the dummy spoke in a hoarse, tiny, high voice. Who made you so stupid? This isn't a staring contest. Pick up the token, jerkface. The girls uttered frightened cries and started to back away. This is crazy, I cried. Who's making him talk? Better do as he says, Brittany murmured. Pick up the token, the dummy shrieked. Listen to your new girlfriends. I balled my hands into tight fists. I took a step toward the little guy. Robby, be careful, Brittany called. He's evil. I glanced back. You know him? He followed us here, Molly stammered. His name is Slappy. He's alive. Really? Yeah, for sure, I muttered. I spun around to face the dummy. Get out of my way, Slappy, I shouted. Robby Schwartz superhero strikes again. I lowered my shoulder and hurtled at him, ready to bump him out of the doorway. Ow! I howled in pain as he snapped his wooden jaws onto my ear. Ooh. I brought my head up and lifted the dummy off the floor. I swung my head around, trying to throw him off me, but he clung to my ear, and his wooden lips clamped down tighter. Pain shot through my head. I dropped to my knees. I grabbed the dummy with both hands. I shook him and struggled to pull him off. It won't let go, I gasped. The pain was so intense I could barely breathe. You're biting off my ear, I screamed. Finally, the dummy let go, and then it spoke again. Pick up the token, Brittany. Brittany hesitated for a second, but she was too frightened to disobey the dummy. She bent down and picked up the golden token. Hold it in front of this long-haired geek, Slappy ordered. Brittany obeyed. She raised the token close to my face. It was so shiny that I could see my reflection, and once again, I felt myself pulled toward it, floating off the floor and out of the room. Once again, I felt myself being dragged into the golden light of the token. Chapter 9. The light grew brighter, until I shut my eyes against it. When I opened my eyes, I found myself sprawled on the floor of the arcade, feeling dizzy and exhausted. I raised my head. Brittany? Molly? Instead, 2 other girls stared down at me. I squinted up at them. Robby, what is your problem? Carly Beth asked. Why are you sitting on the floor? There's no time to play video games, Sabrina said. She grabbed one arm and helped pull me to my feet. I shook my head, trying to force away the dizziness. Where are the other 2 girls? I asked. And the dummy? Both girls glanced around the empty arcade. There's no one else here, Carly Beth said. But there were a second ago, I said. They said the special guests aren't safe, that we have to leave. Carly Beth stepped up to me and touched the side of my head. What's that bump? She asked. Did you hit your head? I reached up and felt a lump. It hurt when I pressed it. I banged it against a game machine, I said. Sabrina laughed. First you trip over a stuffed toy, then you crash your head into a video game? Listen to me, I said. It isn't funny. The girls came to help me. They said we have to get out of HorrorLand. We have to get to the other park. Carly Beth rolled her eyes. There were no other girls, she said. You hit your head, Robby. You knocked yourself out. You dreamt it. Come on, let's go find the others, Sabrina said. She took my left arm. Carly Beth took my right. They began to lead me out of the arcade. My mind spun. Were they right? Was it just a crazy dream? Did I dream that those 2 missing girls came to my rescue? They seemed so real. Hey, stop, I cried. I jerked my arms free. Just inside the door, I bent down and picked something up off the floor. The golden token. Fear file number 5. Oh, and the rest of HorrorLand is, of course, continued in the next book. So it's got a manila folder opened, and on this side, it's got paperclip, a crumpled up poster, but I can't see what it is because on top is a piece of notebook paper with a note. Luke, no more code names. No more secrets. It's time to tell everybody our story so we can warn Robby Schwartz and the others. Are you with me? I'll check the site for your answers. Your sis, Lizzie. And then on the other side, it's got a composition book and a typed title, One Day at HorrorLand. It's got map number 5. Looks like the werewolf village. Some what look like houses. Maybe they're the cages. And then up. So if you're looking at the book in front of you like I am, up there, up north, connects to map 1. So map 1 goes on top of map 5. And then what would be west connects to map 3. And here's the map. Map number 5. Why do Luke and Lizzie know so many secrets about HorrorLand? Before the Fear Files, they starred in Goosebumps One Day at HorrorLand. I haven't read that one. But we're all done with this.